the fall of Maldek, and the creation of Earth, the ancient cosmic war of Nibiru, Tiamat, and the lost planet. Before the Earth was known as Earth, before the Moon existed in its current form, and before the solar system became what humanity recognizes today, there existed an ancient world called Maldek. Maldek was a gigantic planet located between Lamu, now called Mars, and Kishar, now called Jupiter. Its diameter measured approximately 27,500 miles, making it far larger than many of the planets known today. It was considered one of the greatest civilizations in the ancient heavens. Maldek was not an empty world. Billions of beings lived there. Great cities stretched beneath enormous oceans, while other civilizations occupied the surface lands. The underwater kingdoms were called KARNA and VADUR. KARNA was inhabited mainly by the Maldekians, while VADUR was occupied by the Troglodytes and other aquatic races. The planet possessed 2 moons and was home to many species, including the Voltex, dragons, Troglodytes, and the ruling reptilian Maldekians. The Troglodytes were strange aquatic beings. Their average height ranged between 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall. Their heads were extremely large compared to their bodies. They possessed round eyes without pupils, no visible ears, and only 2 small openings where the nose should have been. Their mouths appeared as thin slits without lips. They had no hair and no teeth. Their hands had 4 webbed fingers and no thumbs. Because they lived entirely underwater, the Troglodytes developed advanced knowledge of biology, water systems, and oceanic engineering. Massive underwater cities stretched across the depths of Maldek's oceans. The rulers of Maldek were the Maldekians. These beings were enormous reptilian entities standing between 7 and 9 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in scales of multiple colors that they shed regularly. Like many reptilian species, they reproduced through eggs. The civilization of Maldek had advanced technology, star fleets, and powerful weapons. Their military force was known as the Ninga Fleet, meaning warriors. They bore the symbol of the reptile and were feared throughout the heavens. At the same time, another powerful world traveled through deep space, Nibiru. Nibiru was not an ordinary planet. It moved on a massive orbital cycle called AMS, lasting approximately 25,920 years. Its rulers and commanders possessed advanced knowledge of magnetic force fields, cosmic engineering, and interplanetary travel. As Nibiru entered the solar system, its enormous gravitational pull began disturbing the surrounding planets. The moons of various worlds shifted. Atmospheric instability spread across nearby systems. Planetary orbits became disturbed. The great ship Nibiru carried 7 warships and multiple satellites. Among these satellites were powerful military crafts later known as the 4 Winds. The North Wind, the South Wind, the East Wind, the West Wind. As Nibiru moved deeper into the solar system, something catastrophic occurred. One of the satellites connected to Nibiru accidentally collided with Maldek. The destruction was unimaginable. Most surface civilizations were annihilated instantly. Entire continents collapsed. Billions died within moments. The impact devastated the upper world of Maldek. Only the beings living beneath the seas survived in large numbers because water absorbed much of the shockwave and reduced the impact of the catastrophe. The underwater military and warrior classes remained alive. Nibiru had no way of warning Maldek that the collision had been accidental. Telepathic communication between worlds outside the Interplanetary Confederation had been forbidden to prevent interference from hostile psychic beings. Since the Maldekians were not members of the Confederation, direct communication was impossible. The surviving warriors of Maldek believed they had been deliberately attacked. Filled with rage, the reptilian Ninga fleet launched 4 massive fighter ships to destroy Nibiru in retaliation. These ships departed Maldek and pursued Nibiru through space. As the Ninga ships approached, Nibiru activated for enormous magnetic force fields created by ANU and controlled by Maldek. The magnetic fields trapped the 4 attacking ships inside a giant magnetic cube known as Kaaba. The controls and systems of the ships stopped functioning. The ships became trapped within the gravitational and magnetic environment surrounding Nibiru. Unable to escape, they circled the giant world like violent whirlwinds. Nibiru continued its movement through the solar system while dragging the trapped ships behind it. As Nibiru approached Anshar, now called Saturn, its gravitational pull caused massive disturbances. Nibiru brushed against Saturn's environment and altered the motion of surrounding bodies. This interaction created the rings of Saturn, later called the necklace of Saturn. At the same time, Gaga, now called Pluto, was torn away from its original orbit and pulled toward the inner solar system. Nibiru's original orbit shifted dramatically. Its ancient 25,920-year orbit changed into a shorter 3,600-year orbit, known as a Shar. Now permanently trapped within the solar system, Nibiru continued toward Tiamat. Tiamat was the ancient name of Earth before its destruction and transformation. It was known as the Maiden of Life and possessed its own advanced civilizations. As Nibiru approached, the atmosphere of Tiamat became unstable. Volcanoes erupted. Hurricanes and floods spread across the planet. Earthquakes shook the lands. The inhabitants of Tiamat believed they were under attack. In response, Tiamat launched 11 defense ships led by Kingu, the great emissary and commander of its defense fleet. Nibiru responded immediately. Its 7 warships separated into 2 fleets, for ships surrounded Tiamat, creating a massive magnetic web around the planet. Then the 4 winds attacked. The north wind crashed directly into Tiamat, carrying devastating plutonium explosives. The impact split the planet into 2 enormous halves. The upper half of Tiamat caught fire and became unstable. Giant fragments exploded into space. The north wind circled back and shattered much of the broken half into countless pieces, forming comets and asteroids. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter was born from this destruction. One of these fragments later became known as Halley's Comet. The east wind then struck Tiamat and bored a gigantic hole straight through the wounded world. The planet began wobbling violently in space, while the surrounding planets pulled at it from different directions. Mars and Jupiter pulled from one side, Venus and Mercury pulled from the other. Then came the west wind. One of Nibiru's outer warships launched a massive sphere of brilliant energy resembling ball lightning. This glowing sphere descended into the enormous hole within Tiamat. The energy penetrated the core of the planet and created a gigantic hollow chamber deep inside. Within this chamber formed a smaller internal sun called SUL, also known as AFSU. This internal sun measured approximately 600 miles in diameter. Energy from this internal sun traveled through the polar regions, creating what humanity later called the Aurora Borealis, or Northern Lights. The surviving half of Tiamat was now transformed into a new world. This wounded planet became known as QI, later called Earth. 3 satellites from Nibiru positioned themselves around the damaged world at a 19.5-degree angle, forming a tetrahedral force field that stabilized the planet while it healed. The surviving Voltex and Troglodytes from Maldek adapted to the oceans of the new Earth and began reconstructing life. They worked within the seas and initiated the restoration of biological systems, plant life, and animal evolution. Then came the final impact. The south wind crashed into the wounded Earth. Its collision carved what later became known as the Grand Canyon. The impact also caused a massive fragment to break away from Earth and enter orbit around the planet. This fragment became the Moon. Originally known as Sheshki and later Kingu, the Moon had once been part of the ancient Tiamat system. After the catastrophe, it became trapped as Earth's satellite. The remaining fragments of Maldek and Tiamat scattered across space, creating the asteroid belt that now separates the inner planets from the outer planets. The inner planets became Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. The outer planets became Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Earth eventually stabilized within its new orbit around Shamash, the outer sun, at a distance of approximately 93 million miles, creating a 365-day year. A massive black dust cloud from the impacts covered the planet for long periods, blocking sunlight and plunging much of the world into darkness. According to these ancient accounts, humanity now lives on the surviving half of the destroyed world once known as Tiamat, a reconstructed planet born from cosmic war, catastrophic collisions, and the fall of Maldek, the lost planet.